What's up guys, JJ Gills here, and about a month ago I set up a brand new shrimp tank to start a new colony. In today's video we're going to see how many shrimp we bred in 30 days, we're going to talk about why I had to set up a new colony, and we're going to go into the basics of shrimp breeding if you want to get into it yourself. So breeding Neocaridina shrimp or cherry shrimp is one of the easier things to breed, I'd say. Some people think breeding shrimp is hard or even keeping shrimp alive is hard, and it's not, and I'll talk about why I think some people have trouble with it in just a second. But let's go over some basics if you want to set up a shrimp tank specifically for breeding, okay? So tank size, you probably do like a 5-gallon. Typically, I don't get anything smaller than a tin because honestly, a lot of the times if you get them at the right time, they're like the same price, 10-12 bucks for a 10-gallon tank, I'll take it. But I'm always about getting a good value, so if you guys want videos about that, let me know in the comments and I'll point you in the right direction. So you get you a 5-gallon tank, a 10-gallon tank, and how do you set it up? There's a lot of things you can do. You could go bare bottom if you just want a breeding tank and you want to make a lot of shrimp and you want to be able to scoop them easily. That's not a bad way to go. For me this last time I went with just regular gravel. I had some white gravel laying around. I thought, you know, maybe the shrimp will pop against the white and they'll look really good. So I was just testing that out, and we'll take a look at how that turned out in just a second. Now, what else do you want in your shrimp breeding tank? Basically, you want something, some plant matter or some driftwood, just a little bit to get some biofilm going. So a lot of people might add catappa leaves or Indian almond leaves. A lot of people might add some plants, Java ferns floating around, Java moss, or like a cholla wood. Cholla wood's good, the one with the little holes, and the shrimp will go pick all over that once it starts getting film on it. And that's just a little something that's good for the shrimp as far as diet goes, and you may find that it softens your water a little bit if you're into that. But let's talk about water parameters. And this is one of the reasons a lot of people feel like shrimp are hard to raise, is because they want to get a certain water parameter, or they want to keep their water a certain way, and the problem is they're doing too much. So the tank we're checking in on today, I literally have not touched it in 30 days, and everything I believe is fine. I haven't looked at it close today. Hopefully it's fine, fingers crossed. But yeah, one of the biggest mistakes you can make in fish keeping is chasing water parameters. A lot of people in blogs and things you find on the internet will post what the parameters are in the wild. Your fish didn't come from the wild. Your shrimp didn't come from the wild. So whether you got them from the fish store has 100 tanks in it. They're not chasing specific water parameters in every one. You might find a place that changes the temperature a little bit, or maybe they got like a discus tank they keep extra warm. But nobody is going, this tank needs 7.2 pH and this tank needs 7.8 pH. That just doesn't happen commercially for things that are bred here in the States. So the best thing you can do, in my opinion, is keep your shrimp in the same water you got them in. So if you got them from the local fish store and you know you're on the same city water, don't change too much. Then they have less to adjust to, and that's what they're used to. They were grown in that. They weren't picked from a river in the Amazon or wherever your fish and shrimp come from. And then the other thing is people feel like they have to have the freshest water. They've got to do water changes every day, every other day, just all the time. And if you're doing just a shrimp tank, I would advise against that as well. They're not going to create a heavy bio load. So what you're more likely to do doing a whole bunch of water changes is to find some sort of fluctuation. Maybe your water temperature doesn't match, or your mineral account, or your mineral amount changes too quickly because you're putting in new water. And then that's when I start to see people have die-offs, is when they make too much change in too little of a time. And that's why I really haven't touched this tank. So you've got your shrimp tank set up. How many shrimp do you need to get started? And how do you know if they're male or female? Well, I'd say you could start with a group of as little as like 6. Actually, when I started, I didn't even get into it for breeding shrimp, so I think I had 4, and I got lucky enough to have at least 1 female, and I think the rest were males. But yeah, 6 to a dozen, depending on what kind of deal you can get on them, is probably the way to go. For this project, I started with about 18, and I'll tell you why in just a second. So you're putting together a group of 6, maybe a dozen shrimp. How do you know if you have males and females, and what ratio should you have? Well, generally speaking, your Neocaridina shrimp, the males are going to be a little bit smaller, and the females are going to be a little bit larger. And at maturity, it's really obvious that your females are female because you can see the eggs in their carapace? That might be the vocab. I almost said thorax, but that's an insect term. Anyways, I'll put the real word right here on the screen. But you'll be able to see the eggs inside of the female, and that's when you know for sure. So ratio-wise, when breeding most things, you want to have more females than males. But honestly, I don't think it's going to hurt your success too much if you have an even ratio. Now let's talk about why I had to start this tank over. I was selling shrimp for the first time and moving an okay volume. And one of the things I did was sell too many of my good shrimp. So all I had left was like the lower grade ones, the ones that look a little more clear, the ones that aren't those good reds. And then the other mistake I made was not culling the shrimp, which is getting rid of the ones that aren't the quality that you want. So a lot of the shrimp I had left were not producing as high quality as they were when I started. So if you're really trying to produce shrimp for profit, you got to keep things like that in mind. Now, I don't go just like squishing shrimp that I don't like. Culling them doesn't mean that. A lot of times I can just put them in a different tank, a different planet tank, where I don't care if they make good red ones, and then I can just have some algae eaters in a different tank. But if you're breeding for profit, or you just want really good reds or really good quality, whatever color you're breeding, you got to think about that. Like I said, I kept it pretty simple. I just did some gravel, I put some Java moss in there, and an Indian almond leaf, and I feed them, and other than that, I haven't touched it. So let's get into that, and we'll see how many shrimp we bred in 30 days. And what we'll do is just drop a little algae wafer right here in the front. In a couple minutes, we'll see them all right there all over it. So it's been about an hour, and some of them have been working their way up to this algae wafer, and they're munching on that. But really, a lot of them are still busy just picking some of the algae off the sides. So that's why I don't worry about scraping it off. Those guys are enjoying that, doing some work on that over there. And we've got them enjoying some over there too. So population-wise, I'd say we're up to about 60. They don't stand still enough for me to really count them all, but I think we're around 50 to 60. Now, one thing that's interesting is that I definitely tried to start with some of my strongest reds, like that one's a pretty good one. Got another pretty good one over there. But already we're having some weaker colored offspring. Now that could be just because some of my females might have been carrying before I move them in here. But I'll have to start pulling some of those weaker colorations out so we can keep that strong, bold red of some of the other ones. So in about a month, we've managed to triple our population from the original 18 or so, and that's not bad. I will have to cull a few of these and remove some of the lighter colored ones, but all in all, we're heading in the right direction. So if you were thinking about breeding Neocaridina or cherry shrimp, I say give it a go. It's not as hard as a lot of people make it out to be. So if you found this video helpful, or if you just want updates for what's going on in the fish room, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.